our way back towards the beginning, just because this stuff is still fresh. And I do think the link material that we kind of went over is more, I guess, mentally taxing than the beginning. If that makes any sense. So I'd rather have you guys going all out. Some of you guys been here with me since like 9 a.m. So yeah. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and start off with the cardiovascular system. No, I'm sorry, respiratory, right? And then from there we'll go into pH and blood and how that kind of affects it. And then we'll go from there. We'll go straight into the hard stuff, and then at the end we'll do some immunology. Oh my god! So the immune system sounds really hard. It really is not that bad. The main thing that I want you guys to know is just know the main cells. Know the cells that we went over, right? The neutrophils, macrophage, the helper T cells, cytotoxic T cells, B cells. Just those cells, and know what their main function is. If you guys can get that down, you're in a really good spot, right? So that's where you should focus on. Yes? She's not gonna have any diagrams necessarily. Those diagrams are literally just, they're just saying what their job is, but they're just more complex, that's all, right? So I always try to like simplify things to make it a little bit more digestible, you know? And because they're always gonna have, like, there's gonna be a lot of things that are gonna, there's more stuff, like once you take microbiology, you know what I mean? There's gonna be a lot more stuff to it. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's get this. So starting off with respiratory, kind of went over this a little bit on Tuesday. No pressure either time, I totally don't mind at all. I mean it, I don't mean that sarcastically. I know I'm pretty sarcastic, but I don't mean that at all. Now, for respiratory, we had ventilation and respiration. I'm sorry. Ventilation and respiration. What's the difference between the two?
One's gas flow or gas exchange, and one's airflow.
Great job. So one of them is just exchanging air. Air coming in, air coming out, right? And then the other one's actually trading gases. So whenever we're trading gases, that's when it's respiration. Any kind of gas exchange. If you see that we're trading gases, automatically say respiration, right? If it's just saying the pathway of air or motion of air, that's ventilation. Cool? Like for example, if I crack the window right here, I'm increasing the ventilation because air can come out and come in, right? We're not like trading CO2 or whatnot. Does that make sense? We good? All right, great job. Now, there's two types of ventilation. What are the two types of ventilation?
Inspiration or inhalation.
Great job. Inspiration, or you can say inhalation, which is what I prefer. And or exhalation or expiration, whatever you want to go with. So if the inspiration part works for you, like inspiration, expiration, go with that. If inhalation, exhalation is easier for you to remember, go with that. What I don't recommend is using both of them simultaneously, right? Because that's when you start getting confused. If you're going to use inspiration, expiration, just use inspiration, expiration. If you're going to use inhalation, exhalation, just use that, don't use that. Does that make sense? So inspiration or inhalation, that's air going into the lungs, taking a breath in, right? And then expiration or exhalation is breathing out. Kind of remember that from like second grade or something, right? We good? Everybody okay with that? Now, what you do need to know for these is the muscles, right? So for quiet breathing, kind of like what we're all doing right now, quiet breathing. We're just breathing in and out. You didn't even notice that you were breathing until I pointed it out, right? That's quiet breathing. So quiet, let's get this chemistry stuff. I mean, that's what I said about physiology, that I'll never do this, and here I am. That was only anatomy. Anyways, okay, so we have ventilation, we have inhalation. Definitely misspelled, so don't spell it like me. Now, inhalation, what are the two muscles that are for quiet inspiration or inhalation?
The diaphragm.
Diaphragm is one, and external intercostals. External intercostals. Any questions on that?
Not the internal.
Not the internal.
Only external.
Only external. Because think about it. External, remember it's from anatomy. External, are they lateral or are they medial?
I don't remember that from anatomy.
Lateral. It's lateral.
Lateral, great job. So they're on the outside. Think of it as like they're on the out. The inside ones, the internal intercostals, those are going to bring the diaphragm, they're going to bring that chest cavity closer to each other. So is that expanding it or increasing?
It's the same thing.
Decreasing.
I'm sorry, expanding it or expanding? Making it bigger or decreasing? That's what I would say.
Making it smaller.
Making it smaller because they're bringing it closer to each other, right? External intercostals are on the outside, so they're going to pull it apart. So it's going to make it bigger. So that's inhalation. You good?
That helps.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. So we have the internal intercostals.
That is extra.
And then we have the diaphragm.
Oh yeah, it's external.
External.
Now,
External intercostals.
remember this is still quiet.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
You put internal intercostals.
I put, oh my god, thank you. Thank you. That's what you- I know I can count it. We good so far? Everybody good? Alright, now, this is a trick question. For quiet exhalation, what muscles are involved? Remember I said, trick question.
None.
None. So how do we breathe out?
Do you release the muscle?
Great job. The recoil of these two muscles. So basically, when you take a deep breath in, those muscles are basically contracting and they're squeezing. But once they relax, that's squeezing stuff out. Right? You don't have your water bottle with you again, do you? No?
Always.
So I give this example of I squeeze his water bottle. Damn, that's a hard water bottle. Never mind. So imagine I squeeze this water bottle, right? I physically have to squeeze it in order to make a squeeze, right? Now, if I let it go, do I have to force it to like return to its shape? No, it's just gonna recoil, basically. Same exact thing happens with your water bottle. Even though, so squeezing, inhalation, that's bringing air in. But once they relax, that's when you force air out of your lungs. You good? Great job. So quiet exhalation. No muscles. Just recoil. These two. Everybody okay with that? Not too bad, right? Alright. Awesome. Now, let's talk about forced inspiration, forced exhalation. So, you guys, everybody knows the stairway of heaven down there in the parking lot, right? So let's say you walked all the way up it, and then you're like, God damn it, I forgot my laptop or whatever. I was trying to think of something silly. I couldn't think of it. So you have to walk back down, get your laptop, now you have to walk back up. How are you breathing once you're up there?
Very
Right? You're really. When we moved here, my daughter was 3 years old. She climbed up those stairs 20 times. Yeah, like she was, cause she used to love elevators. She would climb up the stairs and then go around to the park, the elevator, and go wee, and then do it again. We did that 20 times. I was so tired, and she still wanted to go. I was like, this girl's probably gonna die. Actually, stop. But anyways, besides the point. So, what's it called? For forced inhalation, what I want you guys to think about. Hi, Dion. Everyone, this is the amazing Dion, one of my favorite people on campus. She is the most amazing microbiology tutor you'll ever meet. So when you guys are taking microbiology, definitely come see her. Right?
Why would you say that?
It's the truth. There's no pressure. It's not pressure if it's true. Alright?
Are you tuning physio?
Yes, I am.
Damn. As expected.
Yeah.
I just want to say hi.
Thank you for saying
But
that.
yeah, if you're taking micro right now or next semester.
Get your girl up. Alright?
Oh,
Expect you guys. You know?
sorry. No, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry. I need new glasses.
I was like Say hi, don't be rude.
I'm so sorry, I'm terrible. I'm a bad person. You know what?
No,
Ignore
you're
it.
fine.
Ignore that.
Thank you, Dion.
Ignore it.
Appreciate you. All right, so for inhalation, look for muscles that are above the thoracic cavity. So you guys remember that huge list? You don't have to know all of those muscles. You don't have to know serratus posterior, inferior, you don't have to know all. You just have to pick one for each of them. Does that make sense? So I recommend picking sternocleidomastoid because she already said that you can abbreviate it to SCM. Easy enough. Cool. You two have to know all of them. Because they're in her anatomy. Huh? Scalings, right? And then also a bunch of them. I'm not gonna go. But yes. And then for the forced exhalation, any of the abdominal muscles will do. So rectus abdominis, what's called external abdominal oblique, internal abdominal oblique, as well as.
First abdominal.
What did we talk about? You guys were asking.
The what? Lineal?
Yeah, no. Why am I looking at this?
The what?
Sternum?
Pectoralis waist. What are you saying?
The pectoralis minor is one.
Oh, that's for
Minor.
the force.
Yeah. I was thinking about the internal intercostals because we were talking about that. So I was doing this.
Oh.
So internal intercostals is forced exhalation. So if you were wondering what is internal intercostals, forced exhalation. Cool. You good?
Is that free?
Exhalation. Breathing out. Forced exhalation.
So for quiet, it's the same muscles, just contract and relax. For forced, inhalation is above.
Oh, thank you for bringing it up. It's the muscles above plus these two. So it doesn't mean these two are taking a break now. Like, oh, the sternocleidomastoid is doing his job now. I don't know. They're still working. So it's these two plus sternocleidomastoid and all the other muscles.
For inhalation?
Yes.
Before exhalation, do those still work?
No, I mean the recoil of it would help. It still help, but not as much. That's why you have to.
So it's just muscles for exhalation, forced exhalation.
Yeah. So forced exhalation, you got your abdominal muscles, and then your internal intercostals, all that fun stuff. You good? Everybody okay with that? Yes, question.
For forced exhalation, is any of the muscles, and is it also recoil?
Yeah. As long as you just don't say, whatever you do, whenever you say forced exhalation, don't say external intercostals and diaphragm help in what's it called? In forced exhalation. You have to make sure you mention the recoil of those two. Does that make sense? Because if you're saying just those, that means their action will force exhalation or cause exhalation, which is not the case. Does that make sense? You good?
Sorry.
Yes.
The external intercostals and the diaphragm are used for the forced inhalation, forced exhalation, in addition to the other ones.
So for quiet breathing, for quiet inhalation, and forced exhalation, they are contracting. They're working, right? But for quiet exhalation and forced exhalation, it's the recoil of those. So the only way they're helping is just by the recoil. Yes. Recoil plus the other muscles. You have to make sure you mention the other muscles. The only thing that changes between forced inhalation and forced exhalation is just the additional muscles. That's it. Same exact thing. Was there any muscle activity in were the external intercostals and the diaphragm contracting in quiet exhalation? No, it was just their recoil. But for forced, it's their recoil plus an additional muscle, whichever one you want. You good on that? Just make sure you pick the right ones. Don't say, oh, sternocleidomastoid for forced exhalation. Cool? I mean, you can kind of feel it whenever you're like breathing out, you feel your stomach like, right? You good? Everybody all right with that? Okay, cool. Now, respiration. We have two types of respiration. What are the two types of respiration? internal and external. External is between what and what?
The environment
Hmm?
and the alveoli.
Yes, but specifically, to be more specific, you're technically right. But alveoli is still technically part of the lungs, right? Capillaries. That's what I wanted to say. So you can even say the alveoli and the blood, or the capillaries, right? Or you can say external environment and the blood. Either one, regardless, is fine, right? It's not an anatomy class, so you don't have to know the whole pathway and whatnot. You do. You do. Everybody okay? Great job. Now, for internal, it's going to be what? Internal respiration.
The blood and the receiving organ.
Just the cells. Blood in the cells, right? Whatever the cells that need oxygen or need to get rid of CO2, that's the ones who are going to be doing all that fun stuff. You good? So internal respiration, gas exchange between the blood and the cells, the systemic cells specifically, right? Internal respiration between the blood and the lungs, or the blood alveoli, or the blood and the external environment. We good? All right, great job, team. Okay, so that's the overall kind of main things about the overall structures. That's like part one of the respiratory system, right? Now we're gonna move on to part two. This is where things kind of get a little bit more complicated. All right. Before we start talking about that, what we should talk about is hemoglobin. What is hemoglobin? It does carry oxygen. You're right. That's its job. But what is it?
It's a protein.
It's a protein. Great job. It's a protein. So it's a protein in your red blood cells that carry oxygen, and they transport it. They're basically like transporters, right? We good so far? Yeah. Now, do red blood cells use oxygen?
Do they use it?
Mm-hmm. No, they do not. They do not, because they lack a nucleus.
Oh, they carry it.
Carry it. I think of red blood cells as a drug dealers. The number one rule about drug dealing is don't get high on your own supply. Same exact thing, right? So in other words, they have to move their product around the body, and then they trade it for cash, CO2. Hey. I thought this through, bro. Okay, sorry. Anyways. Yes, we good? Okay, so now hemoglobin is going to be carrying the oxygen, right? Now the thing is about proteins, what happens when you eat like something that has protein and it goes in your stomach? What happens to the proteins that starts to happen to it?
It's denatured.
It starts getting denatured. It starts changing its shape. Denatured means like, you don't need this. So like, denatured means I take this and I flatten it out and I make it into a different shape, right? It means I start breaking it apart to its more simple components. Does that make sense? Okay, you can have it back. Now, so the reason why it starts breaking down, what's going on in the stomach? Why does the stomach start breaking down the protein?
To digest it.
Huh? It's acidic. The pH is very low, right? So now if your blood drops in pH, it doesn't necessarily, it's going to like completely warp the shape of the hemoglobin, but it is going to change it slightly. And if you change it slightly, it's not going to be able to fit comfortably. Does that make sense? Like for example, I gave him this example in his in the class. His water bottle is 32 ounces, right? If it melted, still same exact water bottle, but it melted and it changed the shape, can it still hold 32 ounces? No, it's probably going to hold a little bit less. Even though it just melted a little bit, not necessarily. We good so far? All right, so hemoglobin, whenever the pH changes, right? So, can I erase this? Is that okay? So whenever we say hemoglobin saturation and oxygen saturation, same exact thing. Cool? All right. I'm sorry. Hemoglobin saturation and oxygen saturation, same thing. It's just interchangeable. Yes, of course you can.
So there's hemoglobin, red blood cell, and oxygen. What does what? The hemoglobin carries the red blood cell and the oxygen?
So in every red blood cell, there's millions of hemoglobin molecules.
Oh, so it's red blood cell first, then inside that is the hemoglobin?
Yeah.
And the hemoglobin carries the oxygen?
Exactly.
So red blood cell is the transporter for hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the transporter for oxygen.
Exactly. Yeah. Going back to the drug dealing analogy, the guy is going to have a bunch of crates of his product, whatever, the red blood cell. And in those crates, that's where he has his problem, right? That's where he has his oxygen. I got to stop using this analogy because I'm getting in trouble. Yes.
So wherein that would
It's so
CO2
good.
be in?
I'm sorry?
Wherein that would CO2 be in? Like inside the hemoglobin as well?
It can be in the hemoglobin, but we'll get to that in a second. But first, initially, what it wants to do is, first let's just stick with just that. But it can be there, but that's very rare. Do you remember when she said that? That CO2 can bind to the hemoglobin, but it's very rare, right? It usually just diffuses into the blood, and we'll talk about what happens to it. I'll keep you in suspense with some. Cool. Any other questions? So far, so good. So oxygen has millions of hemoglobin, and every single one of those hemoglobins can carry 4 oxygens, right? You good?
Yes.
So think about how much red blood cells how many oxygens, what's it called? One red blood cell can carry. Pretty crazy. Goes on that. We good so far? Now, the red blood cell, once it travels through, once it has oxygen inside it, oh my bad, I forgot. I was almost skip the hemoglobin show. So here we have the P, let's go pressure of PO2. I think that's what she had. And then here we have hemoglobin saturation. So basically how much oxygen is, how much hemoglobin has saturation inside. We good so far? So the higher amount of CO2 you have, the higher amount of oxygen you have, the more the CO2, the more oxygen that's going to bind to it. So first it's going to start off right here, because obviously you have 0 amount of oxygen initially, but then it increases drastically at first, but then once it starts reaching the top, that's where it starts to taper down until it reaches 100%. Right? So initially it's really, really fast, it fills up, but then it starts to taper out. Right? But it does reach 100%. You good? So this graph, that's what it's trying to represent. The more oxygen you have, the higher pressure of oxygen you have, the faster that the O2 saturation increases. The way I think about this is kind of like if we're all getting ready to go on a bus, like we're on a field trip or something. When we initially go into the bus, right, we're all excited, and there's a bunch of seats open, the seats are going to start filling up fast, right? But then towards the end, when all the seats are starting to fill up, now people are going to walk around like, where should I sit? Can I sit here, right? But eventually, all the seats are going to be taken. You guys follow this? Yes. 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 Hmm? Yes. I know. Yeah. You might need until you just draw the graph. I got you guys. Of course, I'm more than happy to. I'm still going to go more in depth with this too. But for right now, the main thing I want you guys to get is the more oxygen we have, right, the faster the hemoglobin saturation would basically fill up. Let's say I have less oxygen, right? It's basically going to go like this. It's still gonna eventually get to 100%, but it's not gonna be as fast. It's not gonna be as drastic. Cool. Basically, he's gonna shift to the. I don't know. Is that right? Yeah, right. Yes. Oh, I think she had her hand up. I'm sorry. Go for it.
What's the P mean?
Pressure of O2. Yes. Go for it. I'm sorry. The hemoglobin saturation?
Does it matter?
We'll do it that way. Just because I know some people. No. The only reason why I want to make sure I get it right is because last time she did take away points for that. So maybe, yeah. So she had a hemoglobin saturation over here. Again, I suck at math, so I don't know why there's a difference, but. And then here was PO2. Yes.
The pressure of oxygen is just the amount of
Amount of oxygen. Yeah. It's a physics thing. And you guys know how I feel about that. We good? Great job. Okay, now, so that's just the amount of, what's it called? Use your word. Damn, can't even talk about that. So the amount of PCO2 would increase the amount of oxygen saturation. Main thing, that's the main thing I wanted to do. Cool. Now, now we're gonna start adding the things that affect this whole graph, right? Now, if she just says just draw the hemoglobin saturation chart, this is literally what you're gonna draw. That's it. But if she says how does pH affect it, this is what you'll do, right? So let's just say this is neutral. We'll say, what is that? The middle number that she had? 7 point something.
7.4.
Is that the middle one?
Yeah.
7.4. So 7.4, right? Now keep in mind, this is not gonna. Does anybody know the pH of the stomach by any chance? 2. Very, very acidic. So in other words, we're not gonna destroy this by like saying that the blood's gonna get to a very pH level. Yes.
Wait, so if like they're dissecting someone, do they have to be careful with the stomach? Because like it can melt.
Well, if you're dissecting someone, that person's died, so.
Oh, so
but-
it wouldn't be as acidic.
Yeah. Well, whenever we have a cadaver, they remove all the organic matter. So no gastric juices, no blood marrow, none of that stuff.
What if it's like a fresh like accident
Probably.
and like there's a puncture in the stomach?
Well, no. Like if have anybody had that like appendicitis?
I did actually.
There we go. So what happens with appendicitis is, so everything you eat, we're gonna get to this in next unit whenever we talk about digestion. But everything you eat, it's technically still outside your body. I know it's weird, but don't worry about it. Well, once we get over there, we'll talk about it. So that stuff, appendicitis, what's going to happen is the appendix is going to inflame, right? And if you don't get it removed, it can burst. And what happens is if it bursts, that's when it's really dangerous and the mortality rate skyrockets. You can actually, there's a high chance that you might die. Because all the GI tract material is now in the body cavity. Now it's inside the body. And we don't want that. Right? Because it's so acidic and it can mess up a bunch of stuff. They have to put you on a bunch of antibiotics, etc. It's not fun. Just make sure you drink your water, stay hydrated, you know? Anyway, okay, so that's gonna be how it looks with normal pH, right? Now, pH, low pH does what to hemoglobin? Forgot. It denatures it. It changes its shape. Good job. So it denatures it. It changes its shape. So what will that do to O2 saturation? Increase it or decrease it?
Decrease.
Decrease it. So basically, it'll still get to 100% eventually, but it'll be at a lot slower rate. Does that make sense? Right? Basically, the closer this is, the more skyrocketed. Just think of it as kind of like climbing up a hill. If it's kind of gradual, it's fine, but once it's like a damn wall. Have you guys ever taken the stairs this way, like on that side of the library, downstairs? That right there is pretty much like a wall. You can literally just reach up and grab the stair in front of you. Yeah. Anyways, besides, yeah, I take that one. It's terrible. Because like I can just park here, and then when I get out, I can just go straight to my car down there. You know, it's like there, it's efficient. Yeah. Anyways, we good?
Could you
Now-
repeat that one again? Sorry.
Yes, of
It's
course.
low pH to what?
So low pH, let's say, I think she said like 7.2 here. Yeah. So whenever you have low pH, you're going to decrease the amount of O2 saturation. Hemoglobin saturation will decrease with pH decreasing. We good? Feel better about that?
Yes, yes.
Cool. Yes. question?
That's because of the it's changing the shape.
Of hemoglobin. Mm-hmm. We good?
Oh, so you can think of it as, since it's lower pH, it's becoming more acidic, kind of like your stomach denatures protein, like that.
Exactly.
Alright.
Exactly. Everybody good so far? Great connection. Now, let's say our pH is increasing. So does that mean more acidic or more basic?
More basic.
More basic, right? There was an insult I was trying to like get going, but no, it didn't catch on. I was trying to tell people like you have a pH of 12.
It'd be basic.
Is it basic?
Nobody caught on to that. But feel free to use it. I use it to my brothers all the time, but they don't know chemistry. So. Anyways, okay, going back to this. So if we have a higher pH, and remember, look at how much we're changing these. It's not that much. That's going to get to 100% a lot faster, right? So this is likely 7.6, probably. I don't know. I'm just going by the past.
It was so fun.
You good? Everybody okay with that? So the higher the pH, the faster that the O2 saturation would be. Everybody okay with that? Not too bad. Cool. Now we're gonna see how the effect of CO2 is what it's going to do to this. Everybody okay with that? So if she says draw the graph, the hemoglobin saturation graph with pH, this is what you do. Cool. Okay, awesome. Okay, now, I'm gonna erase this. Now let's talk about CO2. Now I saw a lot of people like with their minds blown today. I love this lecture because of that, because it blew my mind too when I was in her lecture. Again, when I tutored for her first semester for physiology, it was a disaster. Like honestly, I gave so much wrong information. I mean, yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, I always like rectified it, and I always felt really bad about it. But okay, besides the point. So what's it called? So with the reason why I started tutoring physio was because she stopped. For one semester she was not going to tutor and she was not going to teach anatomy. They only had her just doing 4 sections of physio. So I was with her like Monday through Thursday in physio. Yeah, like everyday lab. That's crazy. But anyways, besides the point. Now what I'm trying to get to, goddamn, is that with CO2, right? A lot of people thought like the reason why we breathe whenever we're exercising, it's because we need more oxygen, right? We got to bring in the oxygen. Now, the reason why that's not the case is because if you take the, what is it called whenever it measures the little thing that measures your oxygen? Thank you, yes. If that was the case, if I'm working out, and let's say my O2 saturation is at like 97%, right? And I'm working out. If I need more oxygen, I'm breathing heavily, shouldn't it decrease because I'm using more oxygen? But it doesn't, it stays the same, right? It actually stays the same exact way it was before. Crazy. The reason why you're breathing heavily is because your muscles are working more, right? And whenever your muscles work more, what do they release as a byproduct?
Hydrogen.
CO2, hydrogen, mainly CO2. Right, that's the main byproduct that they're releasing. Okay? Now always remember this, my nephew said this better than I could ever put it. He said CO2 is the poop of the cells. Right? So basically you can't hold it in, right? You gotta make sure you get it out right away. Cool? Now if you try to hold it in, it causes a backup and more problems. What I'm trying to say is CO2, very, very bad for us. So we try to get rid of it as fast as possible. It's literally the byproduct of this whole thing. So whenever cells, so right now we're chilling out, we're relaxing, our digestive system is still working, right? They're producing CO2, okay? And your neurons are firing, they're producing CO2. So just you sitting here doing, I guess, nothing, but you're actually doing a lot. You're producing CO2, and that's why you're breathing out. That's why you're doing the quiet breathing. Because you don't need to actually do the heavy breathing right now, because there's not a lot of CO2, right? But once we start climbing up the stairs and coming back down and doing it again, now we have to breathe heavily, because what worked more? Your muscles. Your muscles was doing a lot more work. Whenever they do a lot more work, what do they produce? CO2. And what is the CO2? Poop of the blood. Yes, the waste. Great job. So the waste, and we can't keep it in, we have to increase our respiratory rate to get rid of the CO2. Now, this is why this is why CO2 is harmful for us. Whenever CO2 increases, what's happening to the pH of the blood? Decreases. Does that mean it becomes more acidic or more basic? More acidic. And what do we know about when the blood is more acidic? How does the O2 saturation look? Is it faster or slower? Slower. So whenever the CO2 is high, your blood pH is low, right? Which decreases your O2 saturation. That blew my mind when I don't know. It's crazy. Everybody okay with that?
Do you keep the pulse ox thing and exercise? You said like something stays the same.
The O2 saturation would remain the same. It might go up like 1% or 2%, but it will still stay the same.
I thought it would decrease.
It stays the same pretty much. Pretty crazy. Basically, this is what's crazy about oxygen. If your oxygen drops below 90%, so like going from 95, you're doing great, and above, you're doing awesome. If it goes below 90 and it hits 90, even if it hits 90, you're done. Like you need to go to the hospital now. Yeah, that's how crazy it is. That blew my mind. Yes, please. It's okay. Mm-hmm. You do? Mm-hmm. So think about it. Now, whenever I breathe in, that had to go into my lungs and then get transported into my alveoli, and then from the alveoli it gets traded into my red blood cells, and then from my red blood cells it has to go through the capillaries all the way through the veins, make its way back to my heart, and then from my heart it makes its way back out through the aorta, and then from the aorta it makes its way all back to the tissues. See how long that takes, right? So based on how long that takes, right, what's going to happen is what's it called? So, in other words, we always have a lot of oxygen in our blood regardless. Remember, for every red blood cell, how many hemoglobins do we have? Millions, right? Millions of oxygen we have in every single hemoglobin, and we have millions of, 4 oxygen in every hemoglobin, and we have millions of hemoglobin in every cell. And we have millions of red blood cells. So we're always going to have a stock of oxygen, right? Cool. What we can't have is a buildup of CO2. Because whenever, even the slight change of the pressure of CO2, right? Once there's a change in CO2, it's going to change the pH of the blood. How is it going to change the pH of the blood? Decrease it. Does that mean more acidic or more basic? More acidic. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I really want to make sure you guys get this because it's very important. Because this is not going away. We're going to talk about this when we talk about the kidneys too. Cool? Yes. It's okay, that's fine. Totally fine. So, CO2, what does it do to pH? Totally fine. It drops the pH. It makes it more acidic.
CO2 drops.
Yeah, so let's do it this way. PCO2 increases is going to decrease hemoglobin saturation, O2 sat. Right? And whenever PCO2 decreases, what is that doing to O2 sat? Increases. As long as you remember that, you're going to be fine. Now, the reason why it decreases it, PCO2, if it increases, what is it doing to the pH? Great job. It decreases the pH, makes it more acidic. What do we know about hemoglobin? Yeah, but what is it made out of? Proteins. And proteins, whenever they're acidic, whenever they're in an acidic environment, they start to break down. So they can't carry oxygen efficiently. So whenever we have high CO2, the blood becomes more acidic, and because the blood becomes more acidic, it changes the shape of hemoglobin, and because of that, it can't carry oxygen efficiently. That's all. Everybody okay with that?
So the factors that affect hemoglobin saturation is pH and CO2.
Yes, and also the pressure of oxygen. Remember the first one we drew? Cool. So high PCO2, what does that do to, so I'll throw something to you guys, and you guys just point up or down, okay? So high PO2, what is that going to do to O2 saturation? Increase, right? Because O2 saturation just means more oxygen, more people coming on the bus, right? Now, increase CO2, what is that going to do to O2? Decrease. What is it going to do to pH? Decrease. Everybody okay? You okay? Sure? Alright. Just write the stuff out. And then once you guys gonna go over it a few times, it start making sense a little bit more and more. Okay? Now, so a question will come up. You walked up the stairs. Describe, okay? What would happen to CO2, PCO2? Then describe what would happen to, then what would the body do? And then, okay, so PCO2, and then how will that affect the blood? And how will the body compensate for that to return it to homeostasis?
That sounds like a test question.
That is, I almost guarantee. Maybe I can. You want to go for it? More than happy to. So, you walk up the stairs. Describe what would happen when what would happen to PCO2 and how will that affect your blood, right? And then how will it affect O2 saturation and why? Cool. And how would your body compensate for it to bring it back to homeostasis?
Are you waiting for an answer?
Wait, can you repeat what you said after what would happen to PCO2?
Wait for the question or which
Yeah,
one?
the question.
PC. So yeah, I'll just start the question all over again just to make sure. Alright. So. Okay. You're right. That's actually why I didn't want to do it. Be here forever, trust me. Okay, so you walk up the stairs. Describe what would happen to PCO2. Okay? And what would happen to O2 saturation, and what would it do to the blood? Okay. And then how would the body compensate to bring it back to homeostasis? Okay, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
try. So if you're going up the stairs, you're using more skeletal muscles, so that releases more CO2. And as there's more CO2 built up in the blood, it'll decrease the pH,
Great job.
which will decrease the oxygen saturation.
Great job.
So the next part, to go back to homeostasis, you would have to breathe more to release that CO2.
What's that breathe more? That would imply.
Forced exhalation.
And because you can't do one part.
Yeah.
So forced inhalation, exhalation. And what would forced exhalation do to PCO2?
Decrease PCO2.
PCO2.
So that's homeostasis is just
Yeah, increasing breathing. That's why you breathe. So just to write this out, so I said riding up the stairs. I'm not going to write out the whole question. Sorry. Okay, so walking up the stairs, what will it do to PCO2?
It would increase.
Increase, great job. It's supposed to be an error. Okay, and what will it do to O2 saturation?
Decrease.
Decreases. And what would it do to the pH? Decrease, great job. Because remember, CO2 makes the blood acidic, right? Which means it's going to decrease. And because it's going to decrease the pH, it's also going to decrease O2 saturation. CO2 makes the blood more acidic, and because it makes the blood more acidic, it's going to decrease oxygen saturation. Cool? Good? Okay, now to compensate for that, brain. Is that Brian or brain?
It's brain.
Oh, thank you. He's bad. Okay, now if you want like her to know that you know what you're talking about, I would pick a muscle here. Cool.
Force breathing.
So the brain is gonna cause. First, we want to make sure we're breathing out, right? So I would say rectus abdominis to increase contraction, right? Or forced. What?
Exhalation.
Exhalation. Great job. And then increase sternocleidomastoid for what?
SEO. Oh.
No, but for what? Forced what? Forced inhalation. So basically, if you don't want to do this, I would still recommend even writing this. Increase ventilation or hyperventilation, right? So all of this is hyperventilation. Oh, yes. Sternocleidomastoid. So basically, increase hyperventilation, and then rectus abdominis for forced exhalation, sternocleidomastoid for forced inhalation. You good? The what? Oh, increase. Basically, like making it contract more. Yeah. Yes. Yes, but I got you right. Why would it do that? Why would it bring our body? What is this going to do to PCO2? Decrease it. Great job. And if we decrease PCO2, what is that going to do to pH? Decrease pH? I mean increase pH, I'm sorry. Increase pH, my bad. Making it less acidic. Because remember, if we're raising pH, is it becoming more acidic or more basic? More basic, right? You guys are like pH of 2. You're not basic. You are acidic, honestly. Cool? Sorry. Everybody good? Okay. And then what is that doing to, oh yes, please go ahead.
So then, I guess you said that the way to get back to the is exhalation. Where does the hemoglobin, so the increase of forced exhalation, forced inhalation is increase in hyperventilation? Is that what that is right there?
Yeah, so you can just say hyperventilation,
Okay,
or you can say all of this.
okay.
It's like if you want to flex on it.
And then, so then that decreases the PCO2 and increases the pH.
And then what is it going to do to O2 sat? Great job. That's all.
We go back to CO2. So pressure in CO2 increases, the pH decreases. And then when CO2 decreases, the pH decreases.
There we go. This is the muscle. So you don't have to write any of this if you don't want to. You can just say increased hyperventilation. Because remember, you do have to know a muscle for forced exhalation, and you do have to know a muscle for forced inhalation. SCM is a muscle for forced inhalation. Sternocleidomastoid. Yeah.
Because like when CO2 is oxygen's down and pH is down. And then when
Oh, you mean like positively correlated?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can think of it. So like,
So like when
Wait,
CO2
so which
is
one?
down.
pH is down? Yes, you can think of them correlated to each other. But whenever PCO2 is up, O2 is down. Yeah, because remember, the only reason why it's up now is because we did something to compensate it.
Right.
Because
So let's say like my O2 is up, my pH is up, and my CO2 is down.
yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Okay, you're welcome. Totally fine. Yes.
Explain how the body's compensating.
Totally fine. So the brain notices it has chemoreceptors all over the blood. And the brain notices that, hey, there's a lot of CO2 in the blood, and that's going to make the blood more acidic. So let's increase ventilation in order to decrease all of that. That's all. Yeah. Yes.
So if this is the opposite, there always has to be a muscle which spells something at the end of the muscle to inhale, which there.
I'm sorry? One more time.
If this is the opposite, there always has to be a muscle for exhalation and then another muscle for inhalation.
Yeah, but you don't have to write all of this down, right? You mainly just have to know hyperventilation, right? But you should know one muscle for inspiration, and you should know one muscle for expiration, forced expiration. Cool. All right, let's do it the other way now.
Wait, can I take a picture?
Yes, of course. Good job.
Alright, everyone.
No, it's okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Right now.
Yes, question?
Wasn't this example for walking up the stairs?
Same thing.
Yes, this is how it's returning to me.
I'm gonna forget all this.
You're awesome.
Study.
By the way, where's the sign sheet? All right. Okay, now. You guys right now, right? We're not nervous about
It's the
anything,
last
right?
minute cramp session.
So it increases because CO2 increases because you're doing work. Whenever your body is working more, that's the byproduct. It's CO2, right? The more your body works, the more CO2 produces. The more CO2 you produce, the more you have to breathe out and get rid of it.
So the basis of all of this is byproduct.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Excellent observation. Cool. Yes.
I say this rhyme really it's like the more you're working,
Hmm?
the more you're moving, which is like the CO2.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Excellent. The more you're working, the more you're moving. Put that on a t-shirt.
Wait, hold on.
Yes.
I'm confused.
Why
So
you-
like, so since blood carries around oxygen, how come in sounds like they're pushing around CO2, not
Yeah.
Is oxygen also inside those boxes?
So, so oxygen is in the boxes, right? That's the first one. But whenever they get the CO2 and they're pushing that, they can carry oxygen. They can carry CO2. And you'll see what I mean by that in a second.
Okay.
But I got you. So I haven't forgot about you, I promise. Okay, everybody okay so far with this? All right, so right now we're chilling, we're relaxing. So what is the pressure of CO2?
Right now?
Yeah,
If you're relaxing.
it's lower, right? It's lower than you. Because we're not, is it lower than when we're running? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. So what is that doing to our O2 saturation? It's raising. What is it doing to the pH? Increase. Now here's the thing. I know we would think that we shouldn't compensate for this at all, right? I mean, it's awesome. We're not. But we should, because what would happen is if your blood becomes too alkaline, it's also bad, right? So we always want to keep it at that neutral level. It's kind of like that little playing with it, nice little balance looking thing. Okay? So, what is the brain going to do to compensate for this? You may erase these errors and all this.
Hypoventilate.
Hypovenate. So hypoventilate. And what is that going to do for PCO2? Increase it. And what is it going to do to our pH? Decrease it. And what is that going to do to our O2 saturation? There you go. Look at you. Great job, team. We good? I want you guys to play around with this once you guys go home. Okay? Don't say, okay, I got it, I'm not going to do it again. Oh, God.
So for hypoventilation, is it going to be quiet breathing?
Quiet breathing. Exactly.
Can you also think of when CO2 is up, it's forced breathing, and when CO2 is down, it's quiet breathing?
There you go. There you go.
You know what?
So what she said right now?
What did you say?
Yeah, but
Go for it.
What you said? So when CO2 is up, it's forced breathing, and then when CO2 is down, it's quiet breathing.
There you go.
I was going to say, why do we need to like keep the CO2?
Well, because if we don't, our blood's going to become more and more basic. So it's not going to be at the 7 mark. It might even go to 8, 9, 11, or 12. 12 is like bleach. Yeah. You don't want that. Yeah, damn. Yeah. Everybody good so far? All right, we'll think for the children. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. And you want to take a picture of it? Huh? Maybe.
No, I'll just do the opposite of
Perfect.
others. Thank you.
All right, and that's not running, by the way. Just an FYI.
Oh,
So if you did take a picture of it, just make sure you cross it up. Yes.
Can you please go over for when she went over I think for vasodilation and vasoconstriction, like she mentioned like histamines and then
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
okay.
That's after this one, for sure. Okay. Now going to what you were asking me initially, the first one, right? Now, CO2, good or bad?
Bad.
Bad. The poop of the blood, right? So we need more mechanisms or more ways of getting rid of it, right? Everybody good so far? So this one was the first way. Just breathe it out, right? That's the most efficient way. Cool. The other way, this is usually, so this is very effective for force whenever we have a huge buildup and we need to get rid of it fast now, right? So the rest of this is more so for like whenever we're breathing quietly and we still have CO2, right? This is when this part's gonna be more effective, so to say. Everybody okay with that? All right, so the first part, that oxygen that just got rid of all that O2, all that oxygen, right? That hemoglobin molecule that's empty, it can now fit in, CO2 can fit onto it. So this right here is called hemoglobin buffering. So hemoglobin buffering is whenever CO2 leaves the blood and binds to hemoglobin. Cool? Because think about it. Whenever we're thinking about blood, a lot of people think, oh, it's the red blood cell. Blood is a Kool-Aid mixture. Basically, it's like a mixture of a lot of things, right? It's not one thing. Whenever we're saying things are in the blood, we're talking about mainly in the plasma, right? So so imagine that's the red blood cell, right? And then here we have the empty, nothing majiggy, hemoglobin. So right now CO2 is in the blood, right? Oh, buddy. This CO2 is going to bind to the hemoglobin. And that's how it can help remove the CO2 from the blood. And then once it goes to the lungs, it's gonna just release it that way.
Wait, sorry, say that.
So it's fine. So this is called the hemoglobin buffering system. What's going to happen is hemoglobin is going to take up the CO2, the excess CO2 that's just floating around in the blood, the extra poop, right? It's going to take it in, right? And then once it reaches the lungs, it's going to send it out, right? It's like getting rid of a diaper. Mm-hmm. So if she says explain the different ways of the way the way that the blood can get rid of CO2. Who is texting me right now? Okay, be good.
Wait, so what's the first one?
What was the first one? Breathing. Increasing.
But you just.
Yeah. So this is the second way. So the first way of getting rid of CO2 that's in the blood is by ventilation. That's the most efficient way, breathing it out, right? The second way is this guy, hemoglobin buffering. So basically the hemoglobin taking the CO2 into it and then sending it out.
Through the lungs, you said?
It's going to carry it, it's going to hold it. The way I explain this is, I actually thought about this literally yesterday. I was with my son, right? I almost took a big dump. And I think it smelled terrible. I don't know what the hell this guy's doing. Stop calling people. Okay, sorry. Now, I'm not gonna I did I'm a good dad. I changed his diaper and all that fun stuff, so. But I'm not gonna take that diaper and just toss it on the road, right? Kind of like how some dog parents do, yeah. Oh, you looked away. I'm just
Guilty.
So I held that dirty diaper with me because I'm a champ until I found a dumpster and I threw it away. Right? Same exact thing that's gonna happen. It's gonna hold the poop until it can find a place that it can get rid of it, lungs, and then it's gonna dump it. Thought I wasn't going anywhere with that analogy. Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is the least common way of getting rid of CO2.
But
right?
isn't it the same thing with ventilation?
Well, no. So the CO2 is just floating around in the blood, right? It's not in the red blood cell, right? It's just floating in the plasma. But then yes, it is pretty much the same. But the difference is this one's in the hemoglobin, whereas this one's in the plasma. That's the only difference.
So they're both expelled through breathing, just the transportation to get to the lungs and breathing out is different.
Exactly.
So that one's through the hemoglobin. What was the first one again?
Ventilation, just normal ventilation. It was the CO2 is traveling in the blood plasma, whereas this one is traveling in the hemoglobin, which is inside the red blood cell.
What was the first one?
Just ventilation, just breathing. That's all.
Traveling.
Totally fine. Here, so how about this?
Well, so both are ventilation.
Technically, but the only difference is they're both ventilation. You're both getting rid of them at the same time, right? The only difference is the CO2 is in the hemoglobin. That's it. Versus the other one, it's in the plasma, right? Because this is more rare. They're not really gonna take up the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin's not really gonna take up the CO2. Because there's another way that's more common. I should have started with that one, to be honest. Yes.
Hemoglobin buffering is just taking CO2, putting it in the lungs.
Yes. CO2 carrying it, transporting it to the lungs. There's a hemoglobin's gonna come back too, so don't forget about it. Promise. It'll make a little bit more sense right now. Okay. Everybody good? For right now, the main thing I want you guys to know, ventilation. The CO2 just breathing it out, just getting rid of it that way, just breathing it out. Hemoglobin buffering, basically taking up the CO2 in the hemoglobin, inside the cell. That's all I want you guys to know. Yes?
So on the slide, she had hemoglobin buffering system with the equation and then hemoglobin. So are those two different?
Yes.
Okay.
The equation I was about to do it right now.
Okay. But they're both called hemoglobin buffering?
So that one right there is actually bicarbonate buffering system. The one with the formula, that's the bicarbonate buffering system. Unless she changed her slide. Did she change it?
No, maybe I just.
Oh, wait, no. No, so the big formula, that's the bicarbonate buffering system. And then this one, the hemoglobin is basically the hemoglobin just taking up the CO2. That's all I want you to know for this. Don't overthink it.
I'm sorry, so
Yes.
the hemoglobin thing that you said that it brings to CO2 directly and transfers it, that's hemoglobin buffering system.
Yes. It's still gonna come back, but yes, you're right. Because there's still another way that it's going to do that. Yes. Yes.
How many ways are there?
There's 3. So we did 2 already. That's cool. Now this is the last way. This one looks more complicated than it actually is. You see how question?
Yes, so for ventilation, CO2 is just a gas that we just basically
Read that.
while for hemoglobin buffering system, it's in the blood.
It's in the red blood cell. It's inside the hemoglobin
But
itself.
we still have to bring it to the outside
Exactly.
to turn it into gas.
Exactly.
So there's just an extra step.
It's just an extra. That's all. Because it's so bad for us, we want to make sure we get rid of it as fast as possible. Cool. All right. Now the only reason why I have this is because I can never remember this graph or this equation to save my life. Thanks to you should memorize this. The only reason why I don't is because I don't have a test on this. Someone say no. Yeah. Voices in my head are crazy. You can switch these, doesn't matter. I like to put it over there because it makes it a lot easier to think about. Suspense. Okay, so this whole formula looking thing, what you should know, honestly, you can go to a chemistry professor, tutor, and they'll explain this a lot better than I can. But what I do know, what you should know, is if I increase something here, it's going to increase something there. And if I decrease something here, it's going to decrease something there. So as long as you remember this little formula looking thingamajiggy, right? Yes.
For the increasing and decreasing, is it just the left and right side, or is it the middle included?
No, it's just the left and right side. It's like the cetosol, right? The little triangle in this cetosol thingy doesn't move, but the sides do. Cool. Now, what she will ask is, she'll say, if I increase O2, if I increase, H2O, and then she'll pick something here, and then you'll just have to say, what would it do to it? So she'll say, if you increase water, what would happen to hydrogen? Increase. Great job. If you decrease water, what would happen to hydrogen? That's it. And if I increase CO2, what would happen to hydrogen? Yeah. If I decrease whatever this is, I think this is bicarbonate. Yes. If you increase one, you're going to increase one. So she'll pick one and then tell you the other, what would happen to it.
She'll mention what the other one is.
Yes.
She won't like have you say what will happen to blank on the other side of the equation. Or she'll tell you both.
She'll give you one. Yeah, she'll say, if I increase water, what would happen to hydrogen?
Okay.
Yeah, but keep this in mind, if I increase water, it would increase both of these. It increases both of them simultaneously. Yes?
That it increases both, or
That's
do we
it.
have to specifically say increases?
That's it. Just increases. The reason why is because, so there's CO2, so do you guys remember the CO2, the extra CO2? Right? That we said we have a lot of, and we remember how much, we want to get rid of CO2 as much as possible. So whenever the poop comes into the blood is made up of predominantly what? Water. Plasma. Plasma is made up of water, right? So once that CO2 comes into the plasma, right? CO2 coming into the plasma, right? It's going to combine it and turn it into whatever this is. I don't know. This thing. I think it's like bicarbonate or carbonic acid. One of those. But it's going to turn it into this. And then when this is in the blood, it breaks up into this and hydrogen. Does that make sense? So in other words, this is how we're getting rid of CO2. This is another way. Instead of ventilating, so she says, which way can you get rid of CO2 in the, which way can you I don't know, increase the, here's an excellent exam question, I just thought of this right now. Which way can, like if she'll say, how can you increase the pH of the blood without ventilation? Yes, this, but how?
Without breathing.
Yeah. No, like, how about this, but not without breathing, excluding breathing. Basically saying not including breathing. So what's another way in addition to breathing? So basically the more water that binds to more CO2 breaks it up. That's all. That's all. That's all you have to know. Right?
So water is a performance enhancing drug.
Pretty much. Yeah. Which is why it's important for us to drink water. Yes.
So this is breaking up CO2.
Hmm. And then the reason why there's arrows two ways is because they can go this way too. If I increase the amount of hydrogen, what's going to happen to water? Increase. Great job. I'm not trying to trick you. Right? So water combines with whatever this is, and then it turns into this, and then this gets broken up to CO2 and water. We good so far? All right. Yes, please. Go for it.
You asked a question a couple seconds ago.
Yes.
That if too much more water binds to CO2.
Hmm? So basically, the question was, how can you raise the pH of the blood in addition to breathing, in addition to ventilation? So not including ventilation, how can you increase the pH? So think about it. What did CO2 do to our blood? Decrease it or increase it? Oh, it's ready. Okay. Sorry? CO2, what did it do to our blood?
More acidic.
More acidic. It made it more acidic. What did that do to O2 saturation? You know what that? Decrease it. Because whenever the blood's more acidic, hemoglobin's a protein, it can bind to more oxygen. Cool? Okay? You okay? You okay? Totally okay? Okay. What's it called? So here, check this out. So, what would happen? I want you guys to think about this. Imagine we have a red blood cell. Okay? If this red blood cell takes this hydrogen, what would happen to CO2? Decrease it. This is also part of the hemoglobin buffering system. So the hemoglobin buffering system can take away CO2, right? Or it can just take away hydrogen. Because hear me out. pH, think of it as parts of hydrogen. The more hydrogen you have, the more acidic something is. Does that make sense? The more hydrogen you have, the more acidic something is. So if I take away hydrogen, is the blood going to become less acidic or more acidic? Less acidic. Because look at this. Look what happens to the other side. If I take away hydrogen, what happens to CO2? It decreases. And if we decrease CO2, what is happening to the blood? More acidic or more basic? More basic. You guys see that? Cool. Yes.
So you can tamper with hydrogen and decrease CO2?
If I'm taking away hydrogen, am I decreasing the amount of hydrogen or increasing the amount of hydrogen?
You're decreasing.
Decreasing the amount. So what's going to happen to CO2?
Why would it decrease? I thought you said like if you only take out like hydrogen, it will only affect like hydrogen.
No, whatever you do to one side happens to both. So if I take away hydrogen, it's going to decrease CO2 and O2.
Why CO2? Because CO2 doesn't have any hydrogen.
Well, okay, so if I have less hydrogen, so the only way for me to make water and CO2 is when I combine hydrogen to whatever this is, and then it turns into this. And then this gets broken up into water and CO2. That's why. So if I have less things to build, I can't make more. Like for example, if you're making toys, right? You're making action figures. If you have less parts, can you make more toys or less toys? That's the same exact thing. If I have less hydrogen, I can't make as much whatever I need to make. Yes.
makes blood more acidic versus.
The amount of CO2 and the amount of hydrogen. Right? So if I have high amounts of both of those, it's going to basically make the blood more acidic. Yes. I'm sorry? Yeah, pretty much. Think of it as P.
So you said less hydrogen, it's gonna be more acidic.
No, more hydrogen, more acidic. So whenever you have more hydrogen, the more acidic something is. Whenever you have less hydrogen, the less acidic it is. Cool. Okay. All right. I do want to move on because we have like 3 minutes left. And I do want to make sure we go over the stuff that we have. Because I do have something at 3:30 that I have to make sure I get to. But I'll make sure that we can get through this. Regardless, I'll post a video and you guys can watch that regardless. Right? But I did want to make sure you guys get this down. Because this is going to correlate directly with next unit. Everybody okay with that? All right. Yes. It's under. I thought it was under the equation. I thought it was bicarbonate buffering system.
For the 3 ways to,
Yes.
the different ways to get rid of CO2 is ventilation, hemoglobin buffering system, and whatever this is called.
Bicarbonate buffering system.
The bicarbonate buffering system.
Yes.
So the 3 ways.
And this is under bicarbonate, right?
I'm sorry. What?
This equation is under bicarbonate.
Yes. Cool. All right. Now, so make sure you guys go through the almost. I can guarantee. Yes, this will happen. This is going to be on your exam. I cannot guarantee it already. The pathway of blood through the heart. Go through that. She'll give you a start point, and then you guys have to trace the end. Cool. So if she says starting at the atrium, trace the blood from the atrium to the aorta, right? Starting at the right atrium, we have the right atrium going through what valve?
Right
Tricuspid or right AV valve, right? Going into the right ventricle, going through the pulmonary semilunar valve into the pulmonary arteries, to the lungs, coming back via the pulmonary veins into the left atrium, through the bicuspid valve or left atrioventricular valve into the left ventricle. From there to this aortic semilunar valve, and now you're in the aorta. Just make sure you go through. Yes, please.
Can you quickly talk about like the BIOL and rings?
Yes. Cool. So what's it called? Going into that. So that's basically for cardiac output, right? Cardiac output has 2 main things that affect it, which are what?
Heart rate.
Heart rate is one,
Stroke volume.
and stroke volume. Those are the 2 main things. Cardiac output is affected by heart rate, cardiac output. Now we're going to go break that down even more. Cardiac output equals heart rate times stroke volume. Now, heart rate, what affects heart rate? ANS intervention, great job. Cool. Stroke volume, 2 things that mainly affect stroke volume. Great job. Contractility. T plus N diastolic volume. Now, contractility, what ion affects contractility?
calcium.
Not sodium, calcium. Because the more calcium, right, remove troponin, so on and so forth. Okay, so calcium affects this. EDV is end diastolic volume, how much blood is in the ventricle before it ejects, before it releases, before it just gets rid of oxygen, right? Now, the things that affect end diastolic volume, what's going to happen is the more blood, what's it called? The more blood that comes back to the ventricle, back to the atrium, which is going to make its way down to the ventricle. That's called what's called venous return. Return. So the more blood that comes back to the heart, the more blood we can put into the ventricles. Cool. Now, the Frank Sterling law, the main thing I want you to know, the more blood we put into the ventricles, the harder the contraction is going to be, right? Think of it as like whenever you're last minute packing and you're stuffing as much clothes as possible inside your suitcase, and you put like 5 more shirts that can't even fit, and then you zip it. What happens when you unzip it? It just like comes out. Everything just like ruptures out. Same kind of concept. When the more blood we put into the ventricles, once the semilunar valves open, they're going to erupt out. Cool? Of course. So for Frank Sterling law, the more blood in the ventricle, the harder it's going to contract. That's all. The more blood that we're going to see. Yes. It's like moving a slingshot even further back. And then make sure that you guys know that all of these affect blood pressure, right? So blood pressure is basically the pressure of the blood against the walls of the arteries. The things that affect that, blood volume, systemic vascular resistance, the diameter vascular, so vasoconstriction, vasodilation, and then as well as, what's the last one? Cardiac output. Thank you. All of this is on the video that I will put out today. So don't feel bad that I just want to make sure you guys go through all of that. That's all. Okay? Alright, you guys are awesome. I'm about to get going right now.